Hello there, 6th grade. So far in this unit, we've learned how to add, subtract, and multiply fractions. We'll end the unit now learning how to divide fractions. And to do that, I want you to think of these two examples at the top of your page. What is 16 divided by 2? Well, hopefully you know at this point that 16 divided by 2 is 8. Now I want you to look at the next question. What is 16 times 1/2? Well, we've learned to do a multiplication problem like this, that we would place 16 over 1 because it's a whole number, and then multiply the numerators times the numerators and the denominators times the denominators. So we get 16 times 1 over 1 times 2, and we can cancel our 16 and our 2 to get a 1 and an 8. So we get 8 times 1, which is 8, over 1 times 1, which is 1, and 8 over 1 is, of course, just 8. So we get the same answer when we divide 16 by 2 and when we multiply 16 times 1/2. The reason that's the same is because dividing is really the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. And we're going to use that fact to divide fractions. So before we get to that, you might be asking yourself, well, what is a reciprocal? The reciprocal of a number is simply when its numerator and denominator have flipped. So for instance, if I have the number 1/2, I would find the reciprocal of that by flipping the numerator with the denominator. And so when I do that, I get the fraction 2 over 1, or simply the whole number 2. That's the reciprocal of 1/2. So for 1/10, if I flip my numerator and denominator, I get 10 over 1, which is just the whole number 10. For 4, we have to remember that 4 is the whole number 4 over 1. And so if I flip the numerator and denominator, I get 1/4. 1/4 is the reciprocal of 4. For 2/3, if I flip the numerator and denominator, I get the improper fraction 3/2. So that's how you find the reciprocal of a number, and we need to know that in order to divide fractions. So now I want to jump down to the examples, and we'll fill in this box with the steps for dividing fractions as we work through our first example, which is number 5. So on number 5, I have 3/4 divided by the fraction 2/3. My very first step for this problem is going to be rewriting the first fraction, which is 3/4. So that's step 1. We always rewrite the first fraction just as it is. Step 2 is going to be to change our division symbol to a multiplication symbol. So I'm going to change this from division to multiplication. Step 3 is to change the second fraction to its reciprocal. So I'm dividing right now by 2/3. The reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. 3 over 2. So that's the next step in this problem. Change the second fraction to its reciprocal. Now we have a multiplication problem. Now we have 3/4 times 3/2. So we're going to multiply like normal. 3 times 3 over 4 times 2. I can't cancel anywhere, so I'm just going to do 3 times 3, which is 9, over 4 times 2, which is 8, and now I have the improper fraction 9/8. To make this a mixed number, I just need to divide 9 by 8. That will go in one whole time, and I'll get a remainder of 1. So this becomes 1 and 1/8. I can't simplify 1/8 at all, so that would be my answer to this problem. So it's a basic process of rewriting the first fraction, changing the division symbol to multiplication, changing the second fraction to the reciprocal, and then multiplying like normal. We even have a little saying when we divide fractions that helps us remember these steps. That saying is up there in red. Don't you fret, don't you cry, flip the one you're dividing by, which means write the reciprocal of the second fraction. So now let's look at number 6, and we'll do these same steps. We have 7/8 divided by 1/4. So I rewrite the first fraction as it is. Then my division symbol changes to multiplication, and my second fraction flips. Don't you fret, don't you cry, flip the one you're dividing by. So now I have 7/8 times 4 over 1. So we'll do 7 times 4 over 8 times 1. And here I can cancel my 4 and my 8. That will become a 1 and a 2. So now this is 7 times 1 over 2 times 1, or 7 halves. 2 will go into 7 3 whole times with a remainder of 1. So as a mixed number, this is 3 and 1/2. Okay, now let's go to the back side and look more. Number 7, I have 5/6 divided by 2/3. So I rewrite my first fraction, change division to multiplication, and then I flip the second fraction to its reciprocal, 3 over 2. So now this will be 5 times 3 over 6 times 2. I can cancel my 3 and my 6 to get a 1 and a 2. So now this is 5 times 1 over 2 times 2, which gives me 5/4. 4 will go into 5 1 whole time, and we get a remainder of 1. So my answer is the mixed number 1 and 1/4. Next example, number 8, I have 3/10 divided by 3/5. So I'll rewrite that first fraction, change the division to multiplication, and then do the reciprocal of 3/5, which is 5/3. So now I have 3 times 5 all over 10 times 3. I can cancel my 3's to get a 1 and a 1, and cancel my 5 and my 10 to get a 1 and a 2. So now I have 1 times 1 over 2 times 1, which is just the fraction 1/2. A couple more examples. Number 9, 1/4 divided by 3. Remember, the whole number 3 is really 3 over 1, so I'll go ahead and write that in. And then on the next line, I'm going to rewrite my first fraction, change the division to multiplication, and do the reciprocal of 3 over 1, which is 1/3. So this is 1/4 times 1/3, and I get 1/12. Finally, for number 10, 7/8 divided by 2. I'll write that 2 over 1, and then rewrite my first fraction, change my division to multiplication, and flip 2 over 1 to get 1/2. So this is 7 times 1 over 8 times 2. I can't cancel, so I get 7 over 16, and that's reduced. So that's my final answer. So just remember, don't you fret, don't you cry, flip the one you're dividing by, and you'll be all set for dividing by fractions. If you had any questions, make sure you have those written down, and until we see you next time, have a nice day. You're all wonderful people.